walk away for a second. It's kind of loud, so hopefully you can hear me okay, but I have to let that run for a while. It moves around, so I got to keep an eye on it. But I'm going to go ahead and mill up about 8 cups of flour. Fresh flour, I use it right out of the mill. Works great. So I'm going to let that run, then we'll come back in and we'll get going. All right. So I've got about half this flour milled up. I did have a few cups already, so I'm going to go ahead and sneak some out now. Just trying to get stuff set up. So I got about 4 cups there. I'll put a little more in. This is enough for me to make the bread. Okay, now that I've got enough flour, I can get started. So I've already got 2 cups of hot water in there. I'm just going to add another cup, and I'll have to dry that off. And so I am going mostly by this recipe, so I'm going to put you down so that I can get my next ingredients together here. Now, one trick that I do, it's not really a trick, but it's just something I learned the hard way. So when I do my oil, in this case I'm using vegetable oil, I often use olive oil. So typically what I will do is I'll get my 1/3 measuring cup out, and I will then use that for my honey. Now honey, this recipe calls for 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup of sugar. I don't use sugar in any of my bread recipes pretty much. What I use is honey or molasses, agave, something else that I think is a little more natural. So this is kind of an older thing of honey. So you can see I've got to kind of work to get it out. It's getting old. That's okay. So what I do tend to like my honey to be a little bit more. This calls for 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup of sugar. I think the recipe for the honey calls for 1/3 cup or something like that. I'll go anyway 1/3 cup, maybe a little bit more. So what I'll typically do is I'll go like this. I'll let a little more go in there. It's okay. It's not gonna hurt. It'll be a little sweeter. I'm not making this bread to be on a diet. Okay, so now I need to scrape that out, but as you can see, I have, well, I don't know if you can see. You can see there's really not much left in there. There's really not much left in there. Just a little bit. But, you know, honey's expensive. Why throw something away? Okay, all right. Got the honey. Now we got to do the oatmeal, so I need to dry this out real quick. Now what I do, the recipe calls for 2 cups of rolled oats, okay? And you're sitting on my rolled oats right now. So I'm gonna have to get you to sit up, or stand up, to get up off the rolled oats. I didn't mean to cause you to fall. Okay, here we go. Rolled oats. Here we go. All right, oatmeal, right? So what I do, first of all, I have 1/2 cup of 10-grain cereal. So my note for the 10-grain cereal is add 1/2 cup 10-grain cereal to oatmeal for 1 1/3 cups of total combined. So I'm actually going to add 2/3 more oatmeal to this recipe. So since I'm going to do a bigger, I'm doing the 3-loaf version. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to go ahead and I'm going to just toss in some more cereal. So that's giving me, this is an old measuring cup. So we're at less than 3/4 cup. So that's perfect, okay? So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take the oatmeal and I'm gonna make this 2 cups by the time I'm done. So I throw that 10-grain cereal in, and then now Now I'm going to get oatmeal. And I'm not going to exact measure, that's okay, as long as it's close, right? So that's going to be pretty close. All right, that's pretty close. So we give that a toss. Okay, so we got 3 cups of hot water, 1/3 cup vegetable oil, 2 cups of rolled oats, and 10 grain cereal. We've got about 1/3 of a cup of honey. And if I look at the other recipe, the honey oatmeal, it's 3 tablespoons to 1/3 of a cup, so that's fine, or up to 1/2 cup of sugar. And now we need 3 tablespoons of vital wheat gluten, 1 tablespoon of dough enhancer. So I've got that right here already, so we toss that in. Okay. And now we need 6 to 8 cups of whole wheat, freshly milled flour. So here's the thing. My experience has taught me do not put 6 to 8 cups in there. So I've got 4 cups, and I'm going to put those 4 cups in. And then I'm going to put in my TBS Instant Yeast. It's calling for 2 tablespoons of, well, actually, I'm not going to put the yeast in. I should have put the salt in already. So I went a little out of order there. It's kind of funny, you know, when you're doing videos, sometimes you do that. Yeah, you got to teach yourself not to. So what I need actually is a tablespoon of sea salt. Now I use sea salt, non-iodized. So sea salt generally is non-iodized, okay? So I'm going to take this tablespoon, since I already added my flour, and I'm going to drop that tablespoon right onto the flour. And then I'm going to throw some flour on top of that. Now the reason I did that is because you really don't want your salt and your yeast to mix early on. Now normally when I make breads, I will put the yeast in first, the salt last, or the salt in first and the yeast last. This recipe calls to put the salt in, then the flour. That's the way you should do it. I kind of goofed a little bit here. So what I did is I just kind of covered it up with some flour. I could add another cup of flour if I wanted, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and we're going to do the yeast. So let's do that. Okay, we're looking good. I'm going to crank it up to 2. It'll get a little noisy. Now that's very wet. There's not enough flour. So now I read that recipe, 6 to 8 cups. I'm not really going to measure this. I'm going to throw about 1/2 cup in here. And I'm going to start with about 1/2 cup, toss it in, and let it go, because I'm so far below what they called for that I know I can put 1/2 cup or a cup in here. It's not going to hurt a thing. And I'm going to be adding more. I'm probably going to be about 6.5 cups by the time I'm done. But what I want to do is work up to that. I don't want to just throw in 8 cups and it's too dry and breaks the mixer. Instead, what I want to do is go ahead and start adding to get close to the 6 cups, okay? So let's have a look. Now you can see we got a little condensation here because it's warm. It's very wet. Almost looks like cookie dough. So now I'm putting in almost a full cup there. So we're up to about 5.25 cups. I could take this off. Easy to see. What you don't want to do is get impatient. So I'm looking at that, definitely still very wet. So I'm going to now add in increments of about 1/4 cup or so, because I want to work up to the consistency of any typical dough ball. I think for making bread, it's always kind of the same. Yes, some are heavier than others, but you still want to get that just slightly sticky, nice elastic dough ball with a good gluten window. So it doesn't really matter whether I'm making whole grains or whether I'm making pure whites. I'm always looking for the same consistency. It's gonna get noisy in here because I'm gonna mill some more flour up, just in case. Okay, I can shut that off because I'm getting close. You can see that the dough is pulling away from the sides now. Now, one of the things I do that you don't have to do is I will scrape the very top carefully. I'm going to do that now just to get everything in there. Definitely pulling away from the sides now. It's not real sticky. I guarantee you that it's going to be a tad on the sticky side. That's just what I work for. Sometimes this could be better, but this is pretty good. So now while that's running, I don't think I need more flour. So I'm going to dump that flour in there. I can see it sticking a little bit now. But what I need to do now is prep for the next phase. So let's do that. All right, so they say, I think the book even says, I don't know, about 6 minutes of kneading is usually good enough. I always just let it go while I'm prepping. I check to see what my consistency looks like. It's pulling away from the sides, but there's a little stickiness on the sides. So what we're gonna do, shut that guy down. Now, what I do, so I'm gonna take my hand, get some non-stick on it, kick that down, and then I'm going to set you down. This is hard to do with your hand on a camera. You need 2 hands for this stuff. I need someone to film. All right, now we got that guy. Okay. All right, now get some non-stick, and then yep, sticking nice. I like that to be a bit on the sticky side. You can see not everything's out of there, but enough is. Now what I want to do, get both hands with some non-stick, and I just do a bit of a hand knead, and I want to just feel it. I want to see how does it feel. Is it feeling nice and springy? I can see the spring in it. You see that? Definitely feels good. Nice and springy. It feels kind of light, even though this is huge. This is 3 1.5 pound loaves worth of bread. But I want to make some monster loaves for big sandwiches. I like to do that sometimes. It's more fun. Nice springy. That's good. So now I'm going to show you this here. So what I do is I get it in a ball. Okay, hopefully you can see. I need a light on this camera. You get to see the grains, lots of grains in there. You can see the shape of this dough ball. It was easy for me to shape that into a dough ball. That's a good sign. That means we've got a pretty good gluten window. So let me go ahead and put some plastic over it. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put some plastic over it. I usually pull out enough that I can cover my loaves of bread with it. Cover that, helps keep the moisture in. Put a towel over it. Now the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm going to take these, and I probably don't need to do anything to them anymore. I think I've mentioned that before. I do it out of habit. So I'm just going to put some non-stick in there. All right. Now, 10 minutes. So I've already had a minute or 2 on there. Well, I'm just going to put it for 9 minutes on the timer. Okay, we're ready to go. So we've had our rest period. You know, bread likes to rest about 10 minutes or so. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up for me to make these loaves. Hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing. Okay, here we go. So, got this guy. I'm going to get a little non-stick, get it on my hands. Now, we're going to cut them in half, this pastry cutter here. And I'm not going to weigh it or anything crazy like that. You know, some people, that's what they do. So I want you to see. Look at that. Already got a nice rise. So I'm going to take this more or less half, throw it on there. Now what I do is I'm going to kind of pat this down like so and flip it over. Okay, so what we get is that guy right there. Now I'm going to take that and I just kind of knuckle it out a little bit, spread it out, try to make it even. And then I'm going to fold it. So I fold it about 1/3 of the way, and I typically pat that fold down. I want it to kind of, as it rises, be able to mold together. And I really kind of push the seam in, then I pull it 1/3 again, and I'm going to pinch that together. And if I've got a good level of hydration, good moisture level, if it's right in terms of how sticky I want it, then you can see just how easy it is to pinch together. It's soft, little, not sticky that it's sticking to my hands, but it easily pinches together. Then I fold it over like so, kind of 1/3 and 1/3. And what I like to do is I take it and I start pushing down with my thumbs and pulling up with my fingers a little bit until I start to stretch and fold the top, and then I start to pinch that in, and I can actually feel small yeast bubbles popping while I do that. Now this is going to be a big fat monster loaf, but it's going to be mouth-watering. I needed some bread for lunch. I didn't have any bread for lunch today. I was out running my sawmill instead of making bread. Okay, so here we go. Now I'm going to fold this up a little bit like so. Make sure it fits in the pan, and then I typically knuckle it down. Now that is going to be a monstrosity of a loaf. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pat that guy down, and I'm going to set it behind you. So I got this one ready. Now, next loaf, again, you can see a lot of rise. Okay, so take it dry side up first, and I just spread it around. Kind of flatten it out to about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch or so. I can feel how grainy it is, shaped like a football now. It's okay, and flip it over, wet side up, because the wet side up is going to glue together, I guess you could say, or it's going to bond better in the pan as it rises. So again, I'm going to kind of pinch this down. It sort of looks like I'm making some kind of a taco here. I'm going to fold this over. Again, I want to pinch these guys together. I want to pinch that seam. Make that seam not come apart during the rise and bake. So I'm going to give it a good pinch. Okay? Make sure that comes together. Really pinch it good. Don't be shy. Take your frustrations out and ignore that sound from my other phone. Okay, taking my lunch break and making some bread. I don't really have set breaks, but if I take time where I'm not working, I call it my lunch break, whatever, regardless of what time it is. Okay, there we go. So now, kind of done the same thing, pinching seams together. So I want to kind of show you. So now you can kind of see, here's the seam here. I've kind of pinched those together. Pinch this up. It's almost like making a little bit of a bowl, and I stretched it kind of like this here. Now I can flip it over. Of course, I need my both hands. Okay, so we got her, turn it over. What I typically do is kind of tuck her underneath like so. This one's going to be another monster loaf. 2 1/4 pound loaf in a small pan. Look at that. Perfect. Okay. Now I like to rise the loaves on a towel. Why, I don't know. Maybe I think it's better. So I'm going to put those on here. We throw this on. Now, one trick I do when I use this plastic is I'm going to take it and put it on this cookie sheet that I had all that non-stick on, Stretch it out, pull it out, and I'm gonna rub it around in the non-stick. I really don't want it to stick to the bread. What I want it to do is help keep the moisture in. I don't want my bread to dry out, and to help keep some of the warmth in. And then I'm gonna take this towel, put it over it like so. I'm gonna set that for 20 minutes. The oven is ready to turn on. I know this needs about 35 minutes or so to rise, 35 to 45, but it's rising fast now. Got a good gluten window, so I think we'll be fine. So what I'm gonna do now is I got my lame. So a bread lame is nothing really more than a razor and a stick so that you can slice the top of the bread. So I've got that ready. I will probably slice the bread at the 20-minute mark. I used to wait right to the end of the rise, then I would slice it. I kind of like slicing it earlier now because it spreads out more as it rises. I need to get some cream ready to put on top. I usually use a cream and egg wash. I just like the color that it imparts. You know, it's a little shinier, it's a little nicer. The egg will make it shinier, and the milk will cause it to darken up a little bit. So the sugars in the milk will caramelize and get darker. And so you'll get a nice, dark, shiny cover to your loaf like it just came from the bakery. So that's why I do that. So I'm gonna have some of that ready. I like to do it now, which gives it about 30 or 40 minutes to warm up while waiting for the bread to rise. So as the bread's rising, the oven starts to warm up, that glaze will warm up, and I'll score it, put the glaze on it before baking, and we'll see how that turns out. But I'm getting hungry. It's almost lunchtime, so I gotta get cracking. Okay, I've already used the lame. So I did that when I wasn't filming. Sorry about that, but you know, simple. Cut across the loaf, no problem. All right, I did that about 10 minutes ago. Oven says 350 degrees. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put the glaze on top. It's actually I used half and half an egg because I just noticed I had some half and half in the fridge. Okay, so I have that half and half in the fridge. Beat up an egg, mix the half and half in, and you know, I just pour some in, and if I think I need more, I pour some more in. There's probably a couple ounces in here maybe. This loaf is feeling like it's very kind of springy. I can feel it moving around when I brush. So just liberally put this on. And for those that haven't been on MeWe, where I have a MeWe channel called Make Bread Not Bricks, and I just help people make bread. It's just kind of one of those things I like to do. I do have some other videos. I have a channel just called The Old Jarhead, and on The Old Jarhead I have videos about running my sawmill. So for those that are watching this and they're like, Jarhead, is it Marines who's making bread? Well, there are a lot of Marines, I think, that make bread and things like that. But I also make lumber. I do woodworking, and I like to spend time at our cabin that I built. And I like to take the Jeep out and do some Jeep stuff. And so on the Old Jarhead channel, actually, I have videos for mostly about 55, 57, something like that, videos on running a portable sawmill. And then there's a dozen or so maybe for Jeeping and at the cabin and whatnot. Mostly it's about the sawmill. But if you've never seen how a portable sawmill runs, go check it out. It's kind of cool. I think it's cool anyway. Okay, those are ready. I will probably just go ahead and put those in the oven now. I think it'll be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, now we set the timer. I will set the timer for 35 minutes. I set it for 35 minutes. You want an internal temperature of 190 degrees or greater, of 190 degrees or greater, that's Fahrenheit, to make sure that the bread is fully baked. So we're gonna let it go for 35 minutes, then we'll check the temperature and see how it goes. Okay, had to let it go a little longer than I wanted. Still very warm though. Calls happen. All right, look at that big fat sucker. My wife likes the heel, so I'm gonna leave that for her. Soft. Look at how soft that is. Still warm enough for this butter to start to melt. I like a lot of butter on my bread. So when you cut your bread, put it out like this, and it won't dry out. All right, you see that's melting nicely. See how that bread is drooping? That is so good. Oh, such good flavor. Beautiful flavor. Got some little bit of crunch to it with all the grains that are in it. Such good flavor. Beautiful flavor. Got a little crunch in it from all the grains that are in it, from that 10-grain cereal. Oh, that flavor is so good. You're not supposed to eat on TV, right? Oh my goodness. You gotta make this bread. That's so good. I'm sorry. You're probably not supposed to eat when you do a cooking show. I don't know. I've never done one. That's not even a show. I'm just showing you how to bake bread. Gotta tell you, it's so good. Oh man, that's good stuff. So, hey, you can make yours too. Do it. You won't regret it. Thanks for watching.